follow organizations, understand what's happening, what are the trends that are happening in the world. So do leverage the tools at your disposal. So go back. Okay, so here I was going to give you tips about your LinkedIn profile. And yeah, I'll skip that. And then sometimes as a student or somebody that's seeking employment, we also always sort of feel stuck and isolated. But there's other avenues which you can explore. I'm saying realize that your peers, the people that are sitting around this room, are part of your network. Nurture those relationships. Maybe they find a job before you, and then they call you for that another job opportunity within your organization. So nurture that relationship as well. Building your external network. Volunteer. Go to Mandela to anyone that would. That will certainly help your network. And then obviously I've mentioned leveraging social platforms, and then using SAICI Connect. If you're not aware of this, SAICI does have a platform for students who are seeking employment. We do have a platform that's available, and if you want more information on this, we can certainly share it with you. But it's also in an effort to help our students that are seeking employment to also build some connections with organizations. And I think, do I have 3 minutes left? No. So yeah, that's my quick elevator rushed presentation. I like this quote that says, networking is not about just connecting people, it's about connecting people with people, people with ideas, and people with opportunities. And that's the power of networking. So now that you've learned, you can follow me on LinkedIn. You can, the QR code, you can, if you don't know how to spell my name, you can use the QR code. And then you can also buy my book as well, which I provide more information on how I built on my road to 10K. Thank you. Are we not shaking hands like?
Oh. Thank you, Ino. You actually made a lot of good points over there, and it's very important. It's not about only about the followers or even the bank account. The most important thing is actually the impact that you actually leave behind. Talking about networking, that's actually how I got my first job. I actually mentioned SAICI. So when I went for the interview, they asked me, okay, how do you know about the company? I was like, no, SAICI. They're like, okay, who do you know at the company? I'm like, I know XYZ from SAICI. And what inspired you to do civil engineering? They also mentioned, I know Dr. Alison Lourdes. I tried to invite her to one of our women's events at school, at varsity at the time, And they just asked me, okay, your marks are not so great, but which department do you want to be part of, And then I got the job. So yeah, they took it to get
Please say something. I'm so fascinated with this discussion. In 1987, when I was starting to build up my software business, I heard a lecture that said the new future is relationship building and networking, and everybody went, wow. I don't know what that is, but I made sure I found out. And look at that today, we're networked. And 100% volunteerism works as charm. So please, doesn't matter what country you're from, where you have from your organization, go and join your institutions, go and volunteer, go and make a difference. The business and the opportunities will come your way. Yeah. Good luck, all of you.
To introduce our next speaker, it will be Takalani, also talking about the same thing, personal branding and networking. I won't lie, every time I introduce these people, it feels like I have to actually work harder. So she's a candidate civil engineer, SAICI 2022 graduate engineer, Big 5 Construct Impact Finalist 2023, which I'm also part of. Women in Transport Finalist 2022, SAICI Ethics Deputy Chairperson, SAICI Star, Future Leaders Panel, and GN9 member. Please welcome Takalani.
opened my eyes. Thank you very much for that, Saul, and thank you, Cynthia, for your session. That was amazing. And my mandate for today is to just share stories of how I became connected with the rock stars of SciC, and just sharing some of the tips from my personal journey. And then I'll also just give a few tips where I can on how to do personal branding as well as networking. Okay, so I only have 15 minutes, so I don't want to take too much of your time, but I'll just give you just a background of where we come from in terms of networking and technology and how it can help us. The purpose of media networking, steps on how to build a brand, using LinkedIn to build your brand, and other existing platforms. Okay, so they've given an introduction about who I am. I've got 4 qualifications. I studied at the University of Victoria. I did my bachelor, my PhD degree there, and then I continued to do my honors studies in structural engineering as well as project management, specialized project management, and that's my list of recognitions. And I think that the most important ones for me is being the graduate engineer there with SciC, as well as being part of Golden Key Society member. So I get to go to the students and I'm like, you must study harder, get above 50, much more above 50, so that you can also be part of the Golden Key Association. I have 6 years experience in civil engineering, construction, project management, design, and management of projects. And I also have a ton of committees that I am a part of. So just to give you a background of who I am and where I started with this networking journey. So I started working at a company, December 2016. I only had 2 weeks before I started my job. And after 2.5 years, I felt like I had to leave. So I changed, went into construction, and it was hard, but it was quite fun. And then COVID happened and I was unemployed. And I was unemployed for 8 months. Every time I share the story, people find it unbelievable that I sat home for 8 months, but I actually didn't sit home for 8 months. I joined an advertising company that was doing digital marketing at that time, and I used that opportunity to build myself. So that's where I learned how to talk to people, taking pictures and videos. We had to wear makeup every single day. And from that, I then went back into the engineering industry, and I used everything that I've learned from there on to try and build my network with all the companies that I have displayed. I've been on a podcast, the Root of Science podcast. I'm currently working with an NPO, Dream Big, Stay Humble, which goes out to high schools talking about STEM and encouraging them to take maths and science, as well as we've got a company there called Aegis. Because of the networking that I've done, they then sponsored my specialized project management course. So, for some of those that have already graduated or still are to graduate, so you graduated, what's next? How do you then get to the top? So I'll put up this slide just to remind some of the students that I know you are pushing to only get your qualification, but there's more to that. When you jump into the workplace, they start looking at your technical skills, your soft skills, as well as your personal branding and environmental adaptability. And that's something that you have to remember when you go out into the industry. It's not just about the paper and getting cum laude. Please do remember to also acquire these skills at these type of conferences. So just to give a history of engagement, it was interesting to just take a step back and remember where we come from. Doing in-person interviews, submitting your job applications there, running to the building before 4 p.m. Everything has changed. Now we do everything online. We've got team sessions where you work. We engage with a lot of the team members online. I think half of the working group, I've never met them. I've met them for the first time at this conference. But it doesn't mean that there wasn't any growth or progression with the planning. And I think from here on, there's infinite possibilities of how far we can go with using technology to network. So I think this was just to remind the students, we've got social media platforms and we've got your networking platforms. So I know there are a few students that came to me and said, oh no, you need to open a YouTube page, you need to be out there. But I think I sat down and I asked myself, okay, what am I trying to achieve? Am I trying to build myself as a professional or an entertainer? And personally, I decided I will go the LinkedIn route because of what I was trying to build for myself. It's not wrong to have a YouTube page where you're having fun, but you also have to look at your goal and what you're trying to achieve, as Innocentia has mentioned. And then I've just given some information just to remind us where we come from to where we are now, going from physical engagements to virtual engagements. As well, we had a smaller group of liberated youth members, and now there's a lot of us here. And I'm sure there will be more at the next conference, and so on and so forth. So, what is the purpose then of personal branding? As Innocentia has mentioned, number one, standing out from the competition. If no one knows you, then how will they then hire you? So sometimes a familiar face is more encouraging for employers to employ you than someone they're not sure of. Number two, personal branding is an unconventional way to connect with potential employers. As I've mentioned, if you're interested in working at a specific company, follow them on LinkedIn, check what they're doing, so that by the time you do go to the interview, you can let them know on some of the updates that they've posted on LinkedIn, some of the projects that they've worked on. Number three, it also builds employer trust. If they can find you, they don't think you're a ghost doing funny things, and they are then comfortable with working with you. And lastly, it leads to opportunities. As Innocentia has mentioned, getting an opportunity to be part of the working group or planning group for this segment at this event is because of networking as well. So just some of the tips on how to build your network, which Innocentia has covered. Make sure that you do participate in your voluntary associations and volunteer, 100% voluntary. Number two, make sure you use LinkedIn to connect to your peers. Doesn't mean that if you've never met them that you can't build a relationship and actually open doors to different opportunities that you might have not even known existed. Number three, make sure you attend webinars, seminars, and events in any engaging efforts. The first time I met Michael, I went to an AGM. And I sat in there and I wasn't sure what was happening on the screen, but I knew that after the session I will get a chance to connect with some of the rock stars from SAIS. And four, ask questions, talk to people, and contribute to the industry. If there's something that you know, something that you'd like to share, post it on LinkedIn. Tell us how your project is doing. Tell us about the innovative ideas that you are currently working on LinkedIn. And lastly, share, encourage, motivate, and showcase your growth. Don't be ashamed to post your success on LinkedIn. Don't be ashamed to post that you won 5 awards or 7 awards, because it does encourage some of the other youth members out there. Okay, so I'm just gonna skip to the end. I've just put out some LinkedIn statistics, just to give a personal occurrence that happened in my life. So I remember I chatted to one employer. And we had a chat about LinkedIn, and they said, "Oh, LinkedIn doesn't work. We don't even know what it's for." But at that time, I mentioned, look, it was still new. I think this is about 5 to 6 years ago, and I've mentioned that it's literally going to grow so much because it'll be the platform that employers use to get their employees. People are not going to look for you on Facebook all the time. They also want to see how your professional network is growing. And these are some of the statistics that support the need to also have a LinkedIn profile and engage using it. So I'll give you some of the tips that I've used on how to use LinkedIn. I've put in the times on when you should post. Do not post anything at 2 a.m. No one is awake to see it. So rather try and post between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. or 2 to 3 p.m. As well, your best days, Thursday being number one, then second day would be your Tuesdays and your Wednesdays. I've also seen that on Sundays we do have some of our professionals like Innocentia, posting and commenting on our posts on a Sunday afternoon, but these are your best days. Number two, if you would like to then now connect with everyone, you've seen that Innocentia put up a QR code, so just go into your LinkedIn and then it doesn't appear there. Just go to the top right corner. There's like a little QR code thing. Open it and then share your QR code. As well, you can scan someone else's QR code if you want to connect with them. And then my next tip is use pictures and videos. We love your pictures and your videos, but as well, make sure it's about 1 to 4 pictures. What happens is that the last, let's say 5 to 10 pictures don't appear first, and it would take someone that's really interested to scroll through them. As well, the first line should be catchy. I use capital letters because I can, and no one can stop me. But you're welcome to use anything catchy to try and attract someone's attention to your post. And then as well, make sure that if you do repost something, maybe Sassy shared your picture, do repost it, but put a caption or hashtag or something. Don't just repost it without any context. And just to close off my segment, there are different networking platforms. Number 1 being your voluntary associations. If I don't have it here, apologies, but please do engage with your VAs. Number 2, we've got an app called Malcolm, which was developed by Tom McCune, Philip Marsh, and Shelley, which is called the Women in the Built Environment. So it's an app for women where they can engage with industry leaders and professionals and potentially get a mentor on the app. I will share the updated QR code. I know this QR code might be taking you to the homepage, but please do download the app and engage with us. Download the app to also share the pictures that you've taken at this conference. Give us your motivation. Let us know how you feel as well. Ask questions. There are enough people on the app to answer your questions. And then I've just put up a few slides of how it works, but please come to me. I'll show you how it works. And lastly, there's an app called Castillo by Confidence. It's also an app that assists women in engaging with each other, and it's got so many other positive qualities about it. Please make sure that you also download it. Confidence, okay, she's not in the session, but I'll also just ask her to send me the QR code so that you can also download the app and start engaging with us. Yeah, I think the way forward is pretty simple, but I think I'm just going to emphasize the last point. Share what you've learned. So if you've learned anything that you might have not known of in this session, just make sure that you share it with your fellow classmates and friends. Yeah. Will your efforts eventually work? And the answer is yes. Keep pushing and you will soon reach your goal. Thank you. Shake hands.
Talking about promotions, funny enough, Mike and I actually work for the same promotion company. So when we both joined SAISI, or we met when we were still in varsity. He was running the student chapter for UJ. I was in CPUT in Cape Town. And then we were just driving to one of the charity events at UJ, was it Joburg branch does. Yeah. And we're just catching up, talking about promotions and all of that. So it's crazy how the world is so connected. So I'm going to give you guys one challenge today. Make sure you guys exchange details. You saw the tips for LinkedIn. Let's connect, let's like, let's share, let's post each other's achievements. But not to waste more time, I'd like to go on to our next speaker. So, our next speaker is going to be Yanko Banda. And again, she'll be talking about professional registration for engineering practitioners, guidelines, and overarching principles. So, should I do the introduction? Okay.
So let it take in charge.
Give us the full one. So welcome.
They never told me to provide a bio, so I don't
Okay.
really provide a detailed bio. You can Google it. Yeah, I can Google me actually. Okay, they just said I must
Say
give
if
out
you
2
don't know me
minutes.
by now.
Excuse me?
I said if they don't know you by now, what are they doing here?
You know, and the funny story about that, it actually still comes as a shock to me when everyone's like, oh, I know you, and they're like, where do you know me from? But I think just to add on to what Innocentia and Dagalani was saying, LinkedIn has also been an amazing tool for me. And personally, I've never had to search for a job. Jobs find me, and it is through networks like LinkedIn. Even after registering professionally, it's not my time, isn't it? It wasn't say 5 minutes. Even after registering professionally, just by merely updating my title, I actually started getting a lot of recruiters contacting me privately for both local and international opportunities. So I think I just wanted to emphasize what Innocent is saying. And I mean, she's a mentor to me as much as, we're peers, but she also mentors me and she pushes me. And it's also what Takalani was saying, that you share what you learned, So use LinkedIn as much as you can. And I think one of the other things I learned, one of the sessions, was understanding what the different social media platforms work for. So professionally, LinkedIn works. If you want to be sharing like a social type of thing, your Facebooks and your Instagrams work better. So it's also just understanding what is it that you want to be portraying of yourself out there and what type of brand you want to post yourself as. So like me personally, I am a brand. Hence they say if you don't know me, then where have you been living? But I mean, it's all about, visualizing your higher self and start showing up as that higher self. So yeah, 2 minutes is up, Dagalani. I don't have anything else to say. Yeah, I'm a bit nervous because we've got serious people. No, disclaimer, I don't work for EXA. So my presentation is just mainly based on my professional journey and some of the lessons or takeaways I've developed. So don't be asking me things like, why is EXA not doing this? I don't know. I can take the message to them, but I don't know. Why are you not renewing? When someone saying, why are they not answering me after a year? I don't know. But I think the council is really trying to change how they're doing things. I think they're a bit more visible now, which is good for us. I think things are not taking as long as they used to take. Yeah, thank you very much. I've spoken.
Yanko, it's funny, I call you when
Yeah, no, everyone seems to be calling me lately about it.
I'm gonna call you because I paid last year and I'm still waiting.
You can call, I'm making the connections. So morning everybody, as indicated, my name is Yanko Banda. In terms of the discussion points, I'll give a brief introduction of who I am. Then we'll lay the context of who is EXA by looking at the 5 W's and the H. Then I'll just give an overview in terms of what is required to register as a candidate, why do you need to register as a professional, and then how you can go about gaining relevant experience to register, and then just sharing some lessons learned from my own personal journey. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous, so don't mind me. I think it always gets like this when you're talking to rock stars. So in terms of me, as indicated, my name is Yanko Banda. I have 11 plus years professional experience. I recently registered as a professional engineer with the Engineering Council of South Africa with my aero specialization being traffic engineering and transportation planning. Currently, I work as a project manager for a company called Tolcon, which specializes in transport infrastructure management. In terms of education, graduated from WITS, still trying to get my master's. It will eventually happen. And then I've been an active volunteer in the industry since entering in 2012, predominantly with CISA, most recently with SAIC, and with the Engineering Council of South Africa. Apparently, I am an influencer according to EXA. I'm doing something right. I don't have as many accolades as Innocent and Tagalani, but I'm starting. I was awarded the Women in Engineering award by the Women of Stature in 2022, and because of how I undertook the mentoring process, I was appointed to be a board member holding the mentoring portfolio. So that's me in a nutshell. So getting into the whole context of why we're here, who is EXA? So according to Section 22 of the Constitution of the Republic, it states that every citizen has a right to choose their trade, occupation, or profession freely, and the practice of a trade, occupation, or profession may be regulated by law. So South Africa then decided to regulate the profession, which is engineering, which gave rise to the Engineering Professions Act of 2000, known as Act number 46 of 2000. And from this, the council was then able to establish itself as a juristic person. That would be known as the Engineering Council of South Africa. And the main purpose is to maintain, it's to serve and protect the safety and health of public by establishing and maintaining minimum standards and professional ethics. And one of the ways that they do this, besides accreditations and so forth, is registration. So this is just an overview to say, I think most of you, if you are in the session this morning, you heard the gentleman from CBE explaining, well, there's 9. At the time when I got this, there was about 6. So there's a number of built environment bodies, EXA being one of them, which are governed by the CBE, who then report to the Department of Public Works and Industry. So this is where we fall in the bigger scheme of things. We don't work alone. It's about networking, as Innocent and Takalani pointed out. So like I said, EXA has a value chain, so they do accreditations, they set standards, they develop procedures, they ensure that as professionals we carry ourselves in a proper manner, and they ensure that as professionals practicing, we're continuously developing ourselves professionally. But in the context of today, the one that we're focusing on is the second portion of the value chain, which is accreditation, registration, and quality assurance. I'm mainly focusing on registration. So how does EXA regulate the industry? It's by making sure that we as professionals register. So before you can become a professional, you need to register as a candidate. So if you go to a university, it's engineer, University of Technology to be technologist, and if you get a diploma, obviously to be technician. Then when you register or when you've acquired the competence, you'll then register as a professional in the relevant category. So if you're a candidate engineer, professional engineer, and so forth. Then there's also a specified category. So this is like a specialized category for people who do sort of like maintenance, lift inspectors, and so forth. I won't delve too much into that because I'm also familiarizing myself with that space. Like I said, I don't represent EXA, but it's just simplifying it because I know that a lot of people don't like to read. So I've read for them. And then this is just a summary of the steps that will happen. So the first stage is you getting your qualification. Once you get your qualification, you can register as a candidate engineer, technician, or technologist. Then you have to go to the second stage, which is meeting the professional competency. That's when you now train and gain the experience to be able to register professionally. That takes about 3 years minimum. But if you don't register in 3 years or you don't feel ready in 3 years, don't despair. Personally, I think I even had a chat with the researcher a while back. Minimum, I think realistic is about 5 years actually. That's when you also feel confident enough to take on the responsibilities of the work that you'll be undertaking. And should anything go wrong, you are confident enough to actually justify or stand for, what do you call it? Yeah, you go to like a sitting where they'll actually question you and try to see if you, no, not interview, if you did due diligence, no, if something goes wrong, if something goes wrong, they call you in and they assess if you were negligent in any way. So comfortably, after 5 years, you are more confident with your capabilities. So don't despair if you don't get it in 3 years. And then after the 5 years or so, that's when you can register professionally. But and then you enter the third stage where now you observing the code of conduct, you continuously developing yourself and so forth. So you need to know that once you graduate, it doesn't stop there. Engineering is a continuous lifelong learning process, and every 5 years you have to renew your professional registration. So this slide, I just put it here because, like I said, I realized a lot of people don't like to read. A lot of students, like even in the SIC group, they'll ask you, where do I get the forms? Ladies and gentlemen, EXA has a website, and that's the not email address, you're not hiding, to get the forms. So everything you need is on their website. And then I just highlighted a number of forms that are key. So once you graduate, the education, so the forms basically outline everything. They'll tell you if you have this qualification, this is what you can register as. If you don't have, or if you get a qualification with one of the partners, part of the international codes, does your qualification allow you to register as an engineer here or a technician or technologist? If you didn't get a conventional qualification, it does not mean you can't register. You just have to go through an educational assessment or review where you provide evidence to the council, and then they are then able to assess and tell you. You might find that if you graduate, like I know a case, a lady graduated with a degree from the University of Botswana, but according to her qualification here in South Africa, they said it was equivalent to a technologist. So now she can register as a PR eng, even though she has a B eng from Botswana. So that's, all the forms explain everything. So the key ones, I think it's the policy, the educational ones, and then the ones at the bottom, which basically tell you what are the competencies that you need to meet, how to go about it, how to structure your training to make sure that you become competent. So to register as a candidate, the only thing you need, ladies and gentlemen, is your qualification. As soon as you have your qualification, you can register as a candidate engineer, technician, or technologist, depending on the qualification that you have. And like I explained, even if you did not follow the conventional route, you can actually get registered. You just need to go through the academic evaluation to determine which category you fall under. Then professional registration, to register as a professional, you need the qualification obviously, but you also need to demonstrate competence against the 11 outcomes, which we'll discuss in a bit more detail. And like I said, the council deems one competent to register after 3 years, but in my own personal opinion, I find that 5 years is a minimum, so don't despair if you don't register within that 3-year period. So here I just tried to summarize the different categories, like how many years it would take you to get the qualification. Not all of us get our qualification in 4 years, 3 years. Don't despair. Look at me now. I can say Mama made it. Those who know my history. And then typically, as I said, they say 3 years you can be able to register. So the main difference between the various qualifications is a level descriptor. We'll go into a bit more detail about that. When you're an engineer, you need to be solving complex engineering problems. When you're a technician, technologist, you need to be solving broadly defined engineering problems and performing broadly defined engineering activities. When you're a technician, it's well defined. So now we'll go into the outcomes and the degree of responsibility. So with the new registration system, so ladies and gentlemen, I think what's happening now is that most of us are being mentored by mentors registered in the legacy system. So there's now something called the new registration system, which is why I said it's important that you read, because we also need to equip our mentors, because sometimes they're not as clued up about the system now. They'll tell you, you need to go to site, you need to do design, but actually it's not about going to site and doing design, it's about solving problems wherever you are, and they need to be engineering problems. So there are 11 outcomes that you need to satisfy after your training period and when you feel you're competent, and these are grouped into 5 sets, which is group A to E. So you shouldn't confuse the outcomes with the degree of responsibility, which are also ironically labeled A to E. So we'll go into a bit more detail about that. And like I said, for the various categories, the competency standards are more or less the same. The thing that differentiates them is the level descriptors. And the key thing you should always be asking yourself when you're doing work, once you get into industry, is the problems I'm working on, are they engineering problems? What is the nature of the problem that I'm working on? What are the characteristics? That will then determine the complexity of a problem. When you are investigating and trying to find a solution, what challenges did you encounter? And then what process is involved in your decision making to eventually get to your solution? And what this then does is that once you deem yourself competent or ready to register, is that you develop an appreciation of the subject matter that you're saying I'm going to be a specialist in. You are able to demonstrate the knowledge that you have acquired throughout the years. You are able to demonstrate that you are experienced in the subject matter that you are handling, and you are able to demonstrate that you are capable. So I won't go into too much detail. I'll make the presentation available for those who are interested. But basically, these are the 4 steps that I mentioned that you need to be asking yourself at all times when you're doing your problems, like, is this an engineering problem? What type of technologies and methodologies am I using to get to the solution? And. So how I like to describe the differences, because there's always a thing of saying, what's the difference between a technician, technologist, and engineer? So how I thought of it actually this morning was to say, technician problems are usually straightforward. So it's like doing maths lit. Whereas broadly defined and complex engineering is like doing pure maths. But even doing the pure maths, those who are in the previous generation, there was higher grade maths and standard grade maths. Standard grade maths, they tell you this is the formula, use it, so that would be the broadly defined. Whereas with higher grade maths, they tell you before you actually solve the problem, formulate the equation. So that's the most simplified version I can show the differences, because sometimes it's like, it's a fine line between the three categories, but sometimes you might find that you're actually working at a level higher than the one you should be working at. So as engineers, it's very key to make sure you're not working at a technologist or technician level, because that is when you will struggle. As a technologist, if you're working at an engineer level, it's better for you. It makes it easier for you to register because you're working at a level above yours. So I think it's for engineers, always make sure you are solving complex engineering problems, which means it can be a subject that hasn't been, something that hasn't been solved before, or for you to get your solution, there's like 6 options. So you need to narrow it down to get to the best option. If you have one straightforward solution, know that you're not solving a complex engineering problem. Like I said, I won't go too much into that. And then in terms of the outcomes, like I said, there's 5 groups. So engineering problem solving, there's three questions you need to ask yourself. And what this does is that it looks at you identifying what is the root cause for the prevailing conditions. So how I like to explain it sometimes is to say, you get a sinkhole in Charltonville, you get a sinkhole in Ekurhuleni. How you solve for the two is not the same. You cannot just say, I'm going to come in and pump in concrete and a sinkhole is solved. No. In Ekurhuleni, there's dolomites. You actually need to get water off the surface to solve for your problem, because without removing the water, the sinkholes keep recurring. So you always need to determine what is the root cause for the prevailing conditions. And then Group B outcomes, it's managing engineering activities. In terms of management, you don't need to be like Innocentia and manage billions of rands of projects. Even managing a small component in a project, as long as you saw that whole process, you were engaging with the different professionals, that's management. So that shows that you've made the Group B outcomes. And how you communicate, like talking, doing presentations, chairing meetings. It's not about doing 2010 type of projects, but it's about solving problems that are engineering related and that are complex or to the level descriptor for your qualification. And then in terms of Group C outcomes, it's about identifying the risks and putting in mitigation. That is ensuring that you're meeting the Group C outcomes. I'm just giving very simple examples just to show you how you need to be thinking about these things. Yes, you can have more complex ways of showcasing these, but I'm just going to give you simple examples here. And then a key thing that I picked up with Group C outcomes is also adhering to construction regulations. And that is just to say, no matter what you do, and no matter how simple your solution seems, it is always going to have an impact. So you should always be aware that whatever solution you propose has some sort of impact and how to mitigate against that. Group D is acting ethically. Don't accept brown envelopes and so forth from people, because then that means you bring the industry to disrepute. And then Group E is just continuously doing these things, attending conferences, doing extra activities on the job training, etc. And then degree of responsibility just refers to how you develop. So when you first start off, you don't know anything, but you need to show that throughout the years, you're eventually making the decisions, you are in charge or responsible. Should anything go wrong, you are the go-to person to solve or give answers as to what went wrong, how do we mitigate. And that's how you show your degree of responsibility. Then how to gain relevant experience. The first one I've told you, make sure you read the extra form so that you align yourself accordingly in the workspaces that you are in. Be open to learning. Don't come into the industry and say, I'm going to be a geotechnical engineer, nothing else. If when you get into industry and there are no geotechnical opportunities, but there's an opportunity to be involved in a transportation project, go there. You might actually find you enjoy transportation more than geotechnical engineering. So always be open to learning, and then be clear about your goals and set timelines for yourself. If where you are not getting the opportunities to grow, ladies and gentlemen, I think be honest enough with yourself to either request a secondment to a space that will allow you to get the experience you need, or to leave the space that you are in. I know it's very difficult, especially for people in public sector. I'm almost done. For people in public sector, because the money is very nice, I know sometimes it's difficult to leave, but rather sacrifice now to gain the experience that you need and be a proper, well-rounded technical person that will set you apart from just the typical, let's say, whatever. Let me not say names because I was reprimanded earlier. So I think, be open to secondments, be open to actually shifting out of a space to gain the experience, be committed, to whatever you are doing. Make sure you are solely taking responsibility grow your technical knowledge, and be responsible for making your decisions. And then just some tips, jot down everything, save anything that you think you might need in case you leave company X. No offense to employers, but some employers can be a bit malicious, even if they know that you did not leave on bad terms. When you require something now, they don't want to help you. I don't know why. So make sure that you also document or keep your own records, and whatever you feel you might need, whether it's drawings, whether it's a template that you worked on, etc. And then, like Innocenta said, relationship building is important. Your peers now here, they're also important in terms of that. So make sure that you have mentors both internally, externally, have supervisors. There is a difference. We can talk about it after the session because of time. And then just to say to the learners here, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid about what you don't know. We all suffer from imposter syndrome at some point, but you know what, just do it afraid at the end of the day. And then try to be your authentic self. Find what is it that you're passionate about and just be yourself, you know. You don't need to look like a Keith or whatever. Keith is in his lane, he's doing whatever he's doing. You also have your own speciality. And be open to change. I mean, the only constant is change, so always be adapting. And then choose your village wisely. You know, I think like everyone has said here, the networks we have also grow us, you know, like having met Chabo Innocent, I got to link up with Mike, I got to link up with Keith. So your village is very important. Be cognizant of who you surround yourself with. And people like Keith, they push us to be, yeah, you know, they make you feel like, yeah, these global people in your sessions, you know, they just, yeah. And then just some parting shots from my side, just 4 parting shots. Currently, you are there, which means you're a student. You want to be there being a professional, and the only thing that's keeping you from getting to where you need to be is taking that leap of faith. So just take the jump. The worst that can happen is that it's the first attempt in learning. You learn when you start again, you're starting from a point of experience. Comfort zones are beautiful, but nothing ever grows from there. So push yourself out of your limits. Even if you're not comfortable talking, approach one of the people here, just engage, put yourself out there. Don't always expect opportunities to come to you. Sometimes it takes you just taking that leap of faith and just saying, I'm going to introduce myself to his Sresha. You'll be amazed at how he can connect you to his network as well. Then third, if you don't know, the thing to do is not get scared, but to learn. So it goes back to saying, don't be afraid to ask for help. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that I don't know, I need help. Can you offer me some guidance? And last but not least, the struggle continues, victory is definitely certain. So for those who don't know, yeah, Alisa Continua, we all know it. Victoria Asceta just means victory is certain. So don't give up, eventually you'll get there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yanko.
It's actually not a question, but just also aid in the presentation. Good afternoon, everyone. Just to add on the Excel registration, there's another platform that has been recently created. I think it was started last year. It's called IPET. So they've got all the relevant information with regards to the registration. The rate is there. I can actually share the link with you guys because we usually discuss bi-weekly. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, it's bi-weekly. And then you will get your relevant information there, so you can ask anything, and yeah, it's quite helpful.
And just to add, iPad, even though it says technologists, it's not just for technologists. They actually do try assist anyone as long as you're in the engineering space. And Mr. McQueen is actually here as part of the iPad.
Thank you, Yanko. I heard I did a national diploma, so which means I did my slides. So you know, you don't want to join the company. That's fine. I also want to do some videos. Ladies and gents, because of time, we're going to have a few questions. We've got 15 minutes until lunch. So I don't know how we're going to do it. Mike, can you give advice? Is Yanko going to come forward and sit close to you? And then we have like 3 questions.
I think, yeah, if you guys can come and join me, yeah?
Yeah, maybe also email and please join us in case you want to ask some questions as well. So just by show of hands, I'm gonna take 3 first. So 1, 2, number 3. So 3. Okay, cool. Okay, so number 1, go ahead. Please stand, introduce yourself, and then ask some questions.
Okay, I think they should know me by now. Hi, I'm Ishana Rainshort. I'm a student still, UJ Civils, my society. I'm from UJ. I have a question for Yanko, just regarding like the CPD points of for accreditation and stuff like that. Is that only for when you want to register now for a professional, or do you need them as a candidate as well?
No, when you're a candidate, that's why I just didn't go into too much detail there. Before you register, it's called initial professional development. Once you register, it's called continuous professional development. So what's key for you guys now before you register is making sure you get the experience. So not everything you attend has to have CPD accreditation, as long as you can show that it's relevant to your industry. Hence I said that the trainings you can do can be on the job training. It can be your company offering technical trainings. So that also counts to show that you are growing yourself professionally in the space that you want to specialize in. So it doesn't have to be CPD accredited, all the trainings you attend.
Thank you.
Number 2.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Isabella Pudi and part of the UJ Science Student Chapter. So I have a question for Yanko as well. So for someone who might be interested in pursuing a career in the mining industry, first you obtain your GCC Government Certificate of Competency. So I realized there's a PR Cert Eng Professional Certificated Engineer. So what would be the difference? Does obtaining one override the other, or can you also register for PR Eng as a professional engineer once you've obtained your professional certificated engineer? Or is obtaining one just enough and it overrides the other?
Okay, so from the little knowledge I have, like I specified there, that I'm not too well versed in that category, but I remember in one of the sessions what the gentleman indicated is that as much as they have the PR Cert qualification, they actually cannot sign off on their own drawings or stuff like that. They still need a PR Eng tech or technician to sign off. So I think there is still some limitation. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if Tom maybe is a bit more knowledgeable, or Dr. Ellison Lewis is a bit more knowledgeable in that particular category. So one of those things that I must also still get more knowledge in terms of that. But from what I gather, it seems that the PR cert limits you to some degree. So it might be better to get the PR techno, and Eng. But I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that one. Yeah.
Question number 3. Because mine is general. For perhaps your experience around the shift, I guess a lot of you are, in fact, all of you probably are, or you have actually confirmed that you volunteer for your respective volunteer associations. Have you seen a shift in personal networking with the advent and the growth of social media? And is it impacting face-to-face mentoring?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So it's impacting face-to-face mentoring positively in the sense that access is a lot better now. You know, there's a time when we had to wait for somebody to be available to go have a coffee with them and sit around the table. But now you can get access to people. Online, you just schedule a 30-minute virtual call. Nobody has to be inconvenienced that much. So I find that it's made mentoring or receiving mentorship a lot more accessible, even on like a WhatsApp, for example, where some of my mentees, they don't even stay in Johannesburg, somebody's in Cape Town. That access is then unlimited. We can have a WhatsApp call, and people generally have WhatsApp. So I think it's improved it positively, and it's an opportunity that we must all take advantage of.
Any negatives? Just as a follow-on?
Not in my experience. Not in my experience.
Okay, maybe I can also just chip in here. I think on the negatives, yes, there are negatives because you are accessible, and everyone wants your time. And unfortunately, saying no to someone that's in need becomes very difficult. So, but because you are obviously in a position where you are able to assist, sometimes you might refer or direct someone, and then someone might take it as if you don't have time for them, and you are pompous or you think you've made it. So therefore, I'm referring you to Tabalani or Innocentia because I'm thinking they are more likely to assist you. And then Innocentia bounces you back to me, and so I think those are the negatives that can happen. I think also it ties into timing. So you must also not just text someone after like 8 p.m. on a Saturday. You must also respect those boundaries as well. So I think also just for the students and young professionals, be cognizant of that. Because at some point, this group is going to be on the other side where you have to pay it forward. So the time you want to your family time and all these things are happening in your life, in your career. So I think those will be just the negatives. But at the end of the day, you'll find a balance, and also it goes also in the best.
Do we have more questions? Questions? Okay. So I guess we need to
I think you
close.
mentioned lunch, that's
I guess everybody's hungry, so not wasting the time. Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us for the day 2 student parallel session. Do come back for the next session. We have the host will be moderating the next session. So don't forget, let's network, continue growing together, and we design and we build for people. Let's not forget that. So, and let's be professional, basically. So yeah, see you guys soon. Enjoy.
what time do we resume?
What time do you come back?
If we can, I know you want to network an hour, but let's make our lunch maybe 45 minutes. So let's be back. Okay, let's just make it 2:30 or 2:15.
It's 45 minutes.
Yeah, we want to afford the hour, but just come before 2:30. Yeah, please.
What is the two with the 5 minutes?
Oh, yeah, no, I thought that's sorry.
No, At least now we've chopped in the table.
This guy said lunch is at 2, so I'm like, I live in Wochi. Oh, I see people pushing up.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, can we come some more time at 10? And no one can give me pizza. So I told them, well, you know what?
Thank you.